I mean, any organization that you work in has a hierarchy and has roles and responsibilities. So obviously, when you have a corporal acknowledging the authority of a general, I'm assuming that's right. Because again, showing my total lack of experience in military. But if you have these two roles and these two men are standing next to each other, one of them is in this particular role and the other is in a role where he actually looks to the general and says, "Okay, what's the next move?" He is not saying you're a better person than me. He is not saying you have more. You're made in the image of God in a way that I am not. He is not saying you're in some way endowed with some kind of innate humanness that I don't have. He's just saying this is your role and this is my role, and so I show honor to the role that you've been given, and that's part of the way that we preserve functionality in this thing that we're doing together. We're accomplishing something here. That's the point of all this, is that we're trying to accomplish something. You're trying to raise children. You're trying to reach the lost. You're trying to provide, some kind of value to the world as a family. Like, that's what you're doing. You're building a family together. I look at the Bible and I see that this seems like the husband's ultimate responsibility, like to move the family forward. It's his ultimate responsibility. So this is something the world has understood for millennia, that there are roles and responsibilities in every institution that we have. And for some reason, we've decided to forget that more recently. And because of that, we've seen a real breakdown in functionality. And you see it across you see it across all these same institutions. So if you try to flatten everything, you can do that. But you lose a lot of beauty, and you lose a lot of functionality and value.
Welcome to this, I think, really special and interesting episode of the Michele Tafoya podcast. We try to make them all special and interesting, but this one kind of went above and beyond my expectations. Tilly Dillehay is the wife of a pastor. She's the homeschooling mother of 4 kids in the smallest county in Tennessee. But what I heard from her, and what you're about to hear from her, is some really interesting wisdom. And it's nothing super new, really, but it's worth revisiting. She's written for Desiring God, the Gospel Coalition, and Risen Motherhood, and is the author of My Dear Hemlock, Seeing Green, and Broken Bread. And she co-hosts the Home Fires podcast, and she says she's always trying to get beets to grow in her garden. She is a really interesting and I think a really interesting representative of her beliefs. And just because she's from a small town in Tennessee, don't write this woman off. This is a really, I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We want you to have it in your mailbox. It's free, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Rumble, wherever you get your podcasts. Just hit subscribe so that we always show up for you. Tilly Dillehay is next. Well, Tilly, welcome. It's good to meet you on this interesting platform on which many people meet in this day and age. You are quite an accomplished author. You've got a podcast, as I mentioned in the intro. You interest me because I think in some ways we see things alike, and in some ways I think you might be able to share something with me that I haven't thought about. So I love that. You come from sort of a basis or a foundation of let the man lead the marriage. Let him be on the front of the bicycle built for two, and the wife can sit on the back. That's one of the analogies I read. I think there are a lot of women in America who would say, "What? Why can't I be on the front? Why can't I steer this bike?" What do you mean when you say that? For a long time, I've been telling you about my friends at besthotgrill.com. So if you're tired of replacing your grill every couple of years, you'll want to check out the Hot Fast Solaire Infrared Grill from besthotgrill.com. I have one of these. It is amazing. Solaire makes these amazing American grills that heat up to 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes. Yeah, I said that right. 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes. Solaire infrared grills eliminate flare ups and consistently make the tastiest, juiciest, most flavorful food. The Solaire infrared grills heat your food directly, not the air around the food like conventional grills do. And Solaire's been making infrared grills for 20 years and has really dialed in the design. Experience the Solaire infrared grill firsthand with the Solaire demo rental program. This is a great idea. You can try Solaire before you buy with the foods your family always enjoys, burgers, chicken, steak, without a salesman breathing down your neck, and see why Solaire is the last grill you will ever buy. Learn more at besthotgrill.com. Besthotgrill.com. Try before you buy with the Solaire demo rental program at besthotgrill.com. Let the man lead the marriage. Let him be on the front of the bicycle built for two, and the wife can sit on the back. That's one of the analogies I read. I think there are a lot of women in America who would say, "What? Why can't I be on the front? Why can't I steer this bike?" What do you mean when you say that?
Well, I guess I'm looking a little bit at scripture and a little bit at real life when I say that. So some of that is observation, and some of it is just straight out of my beliefs as a Christian, reading passages like Ephesians 5 or 1 Peter that specifically say, a husband is to love and to lead his home, and a wife is actually to submit to her husband. So we have to look at the ground and say, okay, well, what does that mean in real life? What does that look like? Does that mean a bunch of women who are doormats, who are kind of useless women, who just let him do all the thinking and all the, whatever? Just what does this actually look like in a real marriage? And I think when I look around me and I see healthy marriages, I see something that seems to echo that scripture a little bit, in that men seem to have a real healthy and strong appetite for respect, and women seem to have a really strong and healthy appetite for love, as well as respect. But there seems to be a real functionality about having marriages that function kind of like a dance, where you have a leader and a follower, and they're locked in together in absolute unity. But somebody has to kind of be moving across the floor, and another person has to be locked in with them in order for that to be a functional dance. And the tandem bike is another kind of visual illustration of that, where on a tandem bike there is a person who is on the front seat and there's a person who's on the back seat, and both people on the bike are absolutely necessary to the bike's function. Like, you cannot really ride one of those bikes by yourself. You could try, I guess, but it'd be really tough. So two people working in unison is a lovely and a beautiful thing, and very functional. But it does require differing roles and responsibilities. So
I can buy into that the different roles and responsibilities. It's interesting timing for me personally, because someone very close to me has started to talk about the patriarchy and the internalized patriarchy, and that is a notion that a lot of women really do not like or agree with, and I can certainly understand that. I feel in my own relationship like we're partners. We are definitely partners, and there are times where maybe I need to lead when he's not capable or just not in a position to, and vice versa. But from everything I've read of yours, you talk about the word submission by the wife. And I think again, I'd love for you to go into more detail, because I think there are some women who they hear that word and they think, Handmaid's Tale.
right, yeah, it has a lot of baggage, I guess. To use that word. But, I think what I mean when I use that word is the same thing that I would mean if you were, any organization that you work in has a hierarchy and has roles and responsibilities. So you have, someone who's in charge of accounting, someone who's in charge of whatever that I haven't been in a
Marketing.
corporate world
Yeah.
in a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
marketing, and or in the military. How functional would a military be if there were no roles and responsibilities inside of the military? So obviously, when you have a corporal acknowledging the authority of a general. I'm assuming that's right.
You're talking to the wrong person.
Total
But
lack of experience in military. But if you have these two roles and these two men are standing next to each other, one of them is in this particular role and the other is in a role where he actually looks to the general and says, "Okay, what's the next move?" He is not saying you're a better person than me. He is not saying you have more. You're made in the image of God in a way that I am not. He is not saying you're in some way endowed with some kind of innate humanness that I don't have. He's just saying this is your role and this is my role, and so I show honor to the role that you've been given, and that's part of the way that we preserve functionality in this thing that we're doing together. We're accomplishing something here. That's the point of all this, is that we're trying to accomplish something. And I just think we've forgotten that marriage is also something that we're trying to. It's an institution for the purpose of accomplishing something. Like, you're actually trying to do something together as a married couple. You're trying to raise children. You're trying to reach the lost. You're trying to provide, some kind of value to the world as a family. Like, that's what you're doing. You're building a family together. And that means that you're not just vacation partners. You're not just book club buddies. Like, you're actually involved in something that is supposed to be worthwhile and adding value to the world. So that means that there needs to be an understanding of who calls a shot, if a shot needs to be called. And of course, on the ground, most of the time, that means the husband and the wife, they're conferring. She has some expertise he doesn't have. He's asking her for that expertise. But there will be moments when someone has to actually call a shot in order for a decision to be made. And if I look at the Bible and I see that this seems like the husband's ultimate responsibility, like to move the family forward. It's his ultimate responsibility. So, yeah, if you want to get all weird with it, don't. But like, this is something the world has understood for millennia, that there are roles and responsibilities in every institution that we have, and for some reason we've decided to forget that more recently. And because of that, we've seen a real breakdown in functionality, and you see it across all these same institutions. So if you try to flatten everything, you can do that, but you lose a lot of beauty, and you lose a lot of functionality and value.
So if a couple wanted to reverse those roles and put the wife on the front seat of the tandem bicycle, or have the wife lead the dance, do you see that as being able to function, or no?
Yeah, I would say that's not the design that we were handed down. This is not the way that it was meant to work. And again, like, I am looking at the world and also at the Bible for that. So I think, and I'm assuming you're talking about the total setup for the marriage as a whole, not like
not just like every other Tuesday,
like an
or
area of
in certain
expertise
situations.
that he specifically said. Yeah.
Well, so many people, Tilly, as you know, say they want everyone to be equal. They want men and women to be equal. First of all, biologically, we're not equal. The
Right.
women carry the children. So there are distinct differences, and it's what worries me a little bit is that some very young women these days are looking at this new idea of having the baby in an ecto
Oh, my
uterus.
goodness, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard about this, and saying, well, that would make things more equal. And I ask myself, I would not want that. I had the joy and sadly only being able to carry one child in my life. We adopted a second one, but it was one of the greatest things I've ever gone through. I can't imagine just saying, I want to be more equal to my husband, so therefore let's have the baby in this ecto uterus. Where do you think this is coming from and why?
I think it's just this obsession with fairness that it's a total god for our culture. The idea that that everyone should have exactly the same life. Everyone should have exactly the same opportunities, the exact same role.
Outcomes.
What was the word?
Outcomes. It's
Outcomes.
It's like,
That's right.
we do.
Just the idea that you could somehow engineer everything so that you can have an army of men and women who are doing exactly the same thing, so that you have no difference in what a woman is gifted to do, able to do. Like the idea of carrying a child being some kind of a disadvantage for a woman.
Some
like
kind of a chore or a task, or right, like you say, a disadvantage. That's mind-boggling to me.
It shows a total misunderstanding of what makes a woman glorious. Like what are some of the most glorious things about us? And a lot of them are things that we are better at doing than men are. We're gifted in these ways. And I'm not talking about just being baby machines either. I mean, it's everything that has to do with nurture for children, with seeing and understanding people and what they need, and so many giftings in terms of the way we use language, the kind of creativity that we bring to the world in terms of beautifying and filling out spaces and relationships. Like we're the glory of the glory. We are amazing people, and so much of the losses we've sustained in the last 100 years, I think, have been through us looking at men and being like, oh, but I can't do that thing as well. Yeah. Or I'm not being allowed in some way to do this thing. And because I'm not doing it, it must be more desirable than this glorious thing that I'm actually gifted in and able to do well. So I want to serve military. I've got to go be in combat or something, because it's just a misunderstanding of like what our glory really is. And so we lose those things. We lose those glories by reaching for something that doesn't even fit us.
It's interesting because, again, this notion of, the patriarchy, it means men are superior. And I don't agree with that. I think men are superior at some things. I think that they are naturally and biologically stronger. They are therefore almost innately protectors. And I'm down with that. I'd like to have a protector.
Praise God for it,
Yeah, thank you. So it's really an interesting time to be watching all of this and understanding it. It seems as though it's almost stems from, because you draw on scripture to explain this, and I'm wondering what you see in terms of the way that people are rejecting faith and religion or embracing it these days. We're here in 2025, and I can't tell which way it's going. Do you have a good gauge of that? After nearly 30 years on the sidelines, doing the NFL, the Olympics, NBA, you name it, I've learned that real expertise comes from consistency, not guesswork. And that's why I'm excited to team up with Sports Corner Daily. Their free daily picks keep cashing, with analysis so clear, even a casual fan can cash in. And with the NFL and college football and all the big matchups coming up right around the corner, this is the best time to get in on the action. My listeners get 2 expert picks delivered free every single day. Every single day, free. Just text the word BETS, BETS, to 844-759-0281 or visit sportsdailypick.com to sign up in seconds. No cost, no risk, Just smart, winning insight. Again, text the word BETS, BETS, to 844-759-0281 or go to sportsdailypick.com. Sign up. Don't wait. Kick off the season on the winning side. I'm wondering what you see in terms of the way that people are rejecting faith and religion or embracing it these days. We're here in 2025, and I can't tell which way it's going. Do you have a good gauge of that?
I don't know if I do. I mean, it's like looking at the internet, looking at the friends and family, I guess, that you can have conversation with, but it's very hard to track movements that way. I guess what I see in terms of gender relations, though, inside and outside of the church, is definitely a pattern of young women suddenly being like, wait a second, like, I don't think I like this. Like, I don't know if I love this whole all of life is a contest with men. And actually, I secretly am like the consuming patterns for young women. We're like, oh, we're consuming this weird erotica literature that has a lot of strong male figures in it. And like, what if maybe there's this secret part of a woman that actually kind of appreciates, the strength of men and just doesn't understand exactly how that can work in a healthy way, And so I'm drawn to these kind of stereotypes, I guess, of masculine, of shows of masculine strength, Right. I think there's a real moment for young women where they're suddenly like, whoa, what if I kind of do want to be in a home space and take care of it? Like, what would that be crazy? My mom didn't do that. My grandmother didn't hardly do that. But what would it be like if I learned how to bake bread? So you see this kind of homemaking thing happening on social media that I find really interesting because it's like a generation of girls who have never really seen it done, who are fascinated, like they've discovered this new thing. But yeah, I guess all you can really do is, at least on the, where I'm sitting, all I can do is see what's happening on social media and in the news. And
Right.
It does feel like there is an attraction and a curiosity about more traditional gender roles functioning as they used to. And just young people being like, what would it be like if he was the main provider and I was, keeping a house? What would that even be like? Because it's so, it's not normal anymore. So
Yeah, it was, certainly, I grew up in a very traditional household,
right.
a Catholic household where my dad was the ultimate authority, but my mom was good at so many things, and she really was the backbone. Like
Right.
if you ask a lot of people, yes, my dad was strong. He had a job. He kept a roof over our head. He did all he provided, but who is the glue to a
Right.
For
Right.
sure, I would say that my mom was that glue. I just got a goosebump thinking about it. My parents aren't with me anymore, but she was the glue.
Right.
And there's no way around that. And there's something so powerful and attractive and comforting in that,
Yes. Yes.
that you're going to be able to go to that person who holds it all together.
Right. And if you were some foolish person, you would hold those things next to each other and be like, okay, well, he put the roof over the head and she was the glue. Like she made the aroma in the home and he was the walls or whatever. Like which one's better? It's such a foolish question. It's
Right.
it's a meaningless question because it's like, well, yes, both is better. Actually,
Yeah.
those things work together and that's
Right.
what created this this safe childhood that you had. And understanding the beauty in that, I think, is a big part of maybe going back and grabbing some of those things again. Because that was my experience. And I think if you saw it done, where you saw masculinity and femininity in the same space in your home growing up, you don't have a lot of those same questions about like, well, what do you mean? Who's the boss then? Or like, well, what, I don't know. They're just a lot of those questions kind of kind of melt away a little bit in the face of a good experience with something like that.
Well, it's interesting that you sort of describe it as a dance, or like you said, there's the structure of the house, and then there's the coziness and the warmth of the house, and the personality of the house.
Right.
Both they go together.
Right.
And
right.
you
The
have
house
written
wouldn't
a
be
book
worth living in if no one put the aroma into it, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You've written a book about envy, and certainly, and we've touched on that a little bit in terms of, you know, women looking at men and saying, well, I want to do that, and I want to make more money than he does. And,
Right.
you know, look, I don't know which of those things is worthy. I'm sure some of them are. You know, do women deserve to be paid the same as men? If they're doing the same job, I say yes, they
Sure.
are.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, there are just very natural things that were not that are specific to men and specific to women, and there's a movement afoot, and I mean, I have my thoughts about what it's grounded in, which is some version of Marxism, but that every, you know, that you can be whatever you want to be, that you can,
Right.
you know, you can
Oh,
be
yeah.
a cat.
Right.
You can, you know, you're a woman and you can be a man. You're a man and you can get pregnant. All of these things that are so unnatural to me.
Right.
I don't mind, honestly, Tilly, I'll be honest with you. I don't mind if in your life, you know, you're Caitlyn Jenner and you've decided you want to live in this other way. That's up to you, Caitlyn. It's not affecting me, etc. I'm not going to judge, lest I be judged for the way that I choose to live. But there are certain things, like, no, men can't have babies and men can't breastfeed. And to suggest it is like denying reality. So how do you answer those people who think that you can be whatever you want to be?
Well, you know, I do think the moment of, you know, Caitlyn Jenner winning Woman of the Year and being like, here, I'm better at this thing than you guys are, and I just started doing it. I do think that's downstream of those earlier envious moments when a woman was saying, okay, well, I gotta be better at your job than you are, you know. So that I think there's a relationship there of just the cross-gender envy, I guess. A man saying, well, okay, I need to bear children too, so we're going to make a robot who can bear the children for me, you know. Right. Yeah, I think reality is a great tutor. Reality and the world that we live in is a real teacher if you'll spend time in it, looking at it, like spending time in nature, being on a farm for a few hours. You know, you learn things being out in the backyard, laying down, looking in the grass. You'll learn more there for 30 minutes than you learn in 8 hours online, you know.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
this is the real world, and the real world is a beautiful place, but it's not a sterile, cold place where you can just take this part and delete it and insert this other, you know, part that you've changed it out for. Like it is a place that is fertile, but it's not cleanly fertile. It's sort of messy and overgrowing. And so it's the kind of place where you look to see what patterns are in the world, and you can learn so much about this is what your limits are. Like you can't jump off of a building because you'll fall and you'll hit the ground. That's what will happen to you. If you take a bunch of pigs and you sterilize all of them and then you throw them all into a tiny little, you know, meat processing place and have them live there for a year, they'll start to go crazy and, you know, eat each other. Like they need to live naturally. They need to live where they're able to breed, produce more pigs. They'll make better meat for you. Life works better when you work with the grain of reality instead of against the grain of reality. And I think I see people understanding this when it comes to like chemicals in our food and, you know, the way that the environment might be affected by certain things we do. Like they're able to see that when it comes to like microplastics, but they're not able to see that when it comes to like, things we do to our own bodies that we're trying to mess with the created order and the way things actually are. So, I don't know. That was a long roundabout way of answering your question, but
it was a very, very good way. Just the fact that you said reality is a great teacher or a great tutor, and it's surely true. A lot of what you've written has to do with just kind of an attitude adjustment. I wonder what you would say to, for example, what I mean by that when I was reading your pieces is, if a woman is miserable in her home, it is somewhat of a choice. You can choose to see your life as miserable, or you can choose to see all the good in your life and build on that. What do you say to women who have maybe found themselves in a very toxic marriage, or a place that really simply doesn't, they can alone in their few moments find beauty in life, but on the whole, they're miserable and they're mistreated. And what do you say to those women? How do they come up with a new view?
right.
I would say to someone, get out of that toxic relationship, but I wonder what you would say.
Yeah, I would say a few things, because I want to start by just saying I've known a great many people who would describe their relationship as toxic, and yet when they learned some new skills of relating to their husband, they actually would come back around and say, actually, I was describing that as toxic because those were the words that I had to describe the fact that we just had a really unhappy situation going on. But I did not understand how much I contributed to that toxicity because of just some skills that I didn't have.
What kind of skills do you mean?
Yeah, so a lot of the skills that I have in mind, and this is like me watching. I've lived in a home with a woman in Italy for several months where it was this just screaming match kind of a household. Like you would look at it and say like, oh, this is a super toxic thing. Of course, I was a third party observer, so I could see that she was doing as much screaming as anyone else. But I guess most of the patterns that I see are like men who are just kind of grumpy and irritable and yet very passive. And so it's like they refuse to do what she's asking, simple things that she'll ask him to do. They refuse to grow. They refuse to step up and just be really engaged in the relationship, to be nurturing to her, to be thoughtful of her needs. It just looks for all the world like, man, this is such a dud guy, And what I've seen in that kind of a situation often is a woman who has spent 40 or 50 years trying to let him know about her dissatisfaction more effectively and more clearly, to the point that he'll actually get it and he'll flip the switch and be like, oh, so she actually wants me to take the trash out or take her on a date or whatever. Oh, I just didn't understand what she wanted. Now I'll do it. And it's just so many of these women have misunderstood completely how much power they have in their relationship to, if you remove that stream of criticism and learn to give thanks for any good thing that you see. And this is true of marital relationships, but it's also very true in other relationships as well, that our eyes are just drawn to the negative thing that we would like to see someone change, right? Like you look at someone, you see maybe a couple good things, but mostly your eyes are just drawn to those things you wish, oh, I really wish they wouldn't do that thing. And that's just how we are. That's kind of the way our eyes work. But
well, we do it to ourselves too.
That's right. That's right.
We pick ourselves apart before we give ourselves credit. Yeah,
exactly. So just the power of change. And of course, as a Christian, I part of what I'm doing is I'm recognizing all of the good things that God has placed in my life, and how there's every day is a steady stream of things that I can give thanks for if I have eyes to see them. And every day is also a steady stream of some real crap fest, like the thing breaks and the person is late and somebody's rude. Like there's a bunch of things that you can also see in every day that are no bueno. But if you have eyes of gratitude, every person in your life is doing something praiseworthy. And every day in your life contains a myriad of things to be grateful for. And that means if you pull that into your marriage, you're looking at this man who is full of faults, and there's all kinds of things that you wish he would do differently. That's true of every man. But every single man is doing something praiseworthy. And if you start praising the things that are praiseworthy and thanking him for the things that he is doing that some other guy out there isn't doing, it's so powerful. It just really is. And so I hesitate to say like, well, if she's in a toxic relationship, well, that's it. All bets are off. Like, get out of there. Because I'm not in there. I'm not seeing what he's doing, what she's doing. But I do know that people tend to behave the way you expect them to behave, the way that you describe them to themselves. Like people actually change to meet with praise and with a positive expectation. So I've seen women who would say like, well, I'm in, even people say like he's verbally abusive. That's another term that I'm like, ooh, that's a real dangerous term, because anytime I say a rude thing to my children, am I verbally abusive? Like, is that, and I understand there's so many different gradations of how these things go down, but we need to be really careful with the terms that we use to describe people. Because if we're using a term to describe someone so that we can write them off and assume that they're never going to change, we're in a really dangerous place with our relationships. So, long-winded answer. I know.
I'm listening very closely to, because there's a lot of wisdom there. But you're not saying that necessarily all relationships are salvageable.
I'm certainly not saying that.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I just want to be clear on that for the listeners, because I can hear in the back of my mind a bunch of people screaming and going, but why? Wait, I am right.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, I know so many examples personally of people who have turned a relationship around who were using some of those terms that I would say be slow to label your man or your relationship, because you just never know.
Yeah. So interesting. And you've written so many wonderful books. My Dear Hemlock, a Christian living book for women, is one of them, and many more. And people can find them on Amazon, wherever you find your books. Tilly, it's been a really an interesting conversation, one that I genuinely appreciate and have taken a lot from. And I hope we can do it again.
Thanks. I've enjoyed it too.
Thank you, Tilly. I end every podcast by saying, be brave and do good. And I think Tilly has shown some courage in standing on her values. And I think that's good. We'll see you next time. Hey, you can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.